This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Modern science. Countless years of research, tens of thousands of experiments, all culminating in an explosion of innovation. Humanity launched into a technological golden age. Global communication in an instant. Live broadcasting from any location at any time. Once unimaginable technologies, now becoming a reality. And scientists worldwide are paving the way for more to come. The science behind this propulsion of technology has also told us that we're living in an ever-expanding universe, filled with hundreds of billions of galaxies. And within one of these galaxies, our solar system, where 8 planets, and a sort of planet but not really, have been rotating around a star for the last 4.5 billion years. And within this solar system, planet Earth. Green, luscious, oxygen-rich. Most can agree on the basic details, but there is a lane of discussion that some don't dare go down. A rabbit hole that runs so deep, you might never come back out. Is the Earth actually flat? Ever since the ancient Greeks began their equations more than 2,000 years ago, the overwhelming consensus has slowly shifted to the viewpoint that the Earth is a sphere. More recently, satellites around the world have managed to capture images of the planet from the depths of space, further cementing a spherical Earth. There's also the mountain of mathematical and scientific evidence, but not everyone was so easily convinced. Alternate theories of Earth's shape have sprung up left, right and centre, but none of them more widespread than flat Earth. A theory that suggests that NASA, world governments, airlines, and basically anyone in the field of navigation have been lying to us about the shape of the planet for the last few decades. Is it true? Has modern technology failed us? Or are scientists hiding the truth? Is there a massive dome covering the planet? Did the notorious Big know something we didn't? Modern flat Earth societies worldwide have been asking similar questions for quite some time, and governments are terrified with the progress they're making. Their main beliefs are the following. The Earth is flat, under a dome, and surrounded by a giant wall of ice. Also, some believe that space is a complete lie, crafted by a man on Photoshop. The sun and the moon are 2 small lights hovering over the Earth within the dome. Gravity isn't a thing.
Fake news, folks.
And that the entirety of Australia doesn't actually exist. All of this because they can't see a curve on the horizon. Their arguments are strong, and they're only getting stronger, as in the last few years, they've assembled a crack team of scientists solely devoted to finding evidence for their theory. They're not quite there yet, but they're getting damn close. Alongside the research division, there are the Flat Earth conventions, where the most educated Flat Earth conspiracy theorists gather to hold intelligent and profound discussions on what's really going on in the shadows. And through the global reach of the internet, Flat Earth has spread far and wide, even to the point where people are actually building entire communities around the theory. Flat Earth music, Flat Earth merchandise, even Flat Earth dating sites. Naturally, the whole thing has also led to a lot of memes and trolling. But with thousands of members, and an end goal to have Flat Earth taught in schools, the Flat Earthers aren't playing around. Dover, the United Kingdom, the 1950s. There's a guy in town called Samuel Shenton, and he thinks the world is flat. After creating his own cosmology, he sets up the International Flat Earth Research Society in 1956, and starts spreading the word. Now, the Flat Earth Society isn't actually the first of its kind. In fact, it's heavily inspired by another Flat Earth Society founded in England in the late 1800s, but with less of a religious focus. These guys were going to prove the Earth was flat with science. Shenton would spend the next few years lecturing his theory to political groups and youth clubs. However, for some reason, his ideas struggled to catch on. When Shenton died in 1972, the society would come under new leadership, a bloke called Charles Johnson. The membership of the Flat Earth Society would rise to around 3,000 under Johnson's leadership, but began to decline in the late 90s, after a fire at his house. And Flat Earth began to fizzle out. That was until the internet came around. A digital revolution. Arguably the most monumental piece of technology ever invented. In with it came new forms of communication. universal access to data, and the development of cutting-edge technologies. Of course, it wasn't all good. But with this flood of new communication came new means to spread information. Instead of traditional network television, which was constantly under producer supervision, anyone with a laptop could shoot a video, upload it, and have it streamed directly onto someone else's computer. It didn't matter how ill-researched what you were saying was, as long as it made for a good 30-minute watch before bed, you were golden. And so, early YouTube was massive for spreading some of the more far-reaching conspiracy theories, and YouTube's algorithm actually pushed you towards them. It was in this climate that the Flat Earth Society relaunched online in 2009. And from there, it wasn't long before Flat Earth videos started to circulate on this conspiracy-driven YouTube, accumulating millions of views, and luring more and more people in. Literally to the point where YouTube had to change how their algorithm works in order to curb the spread of them. But it was too late. Thousands joined, conventions sprung up, books written, articles uploaded, songs produced, tweets posted. It was everywhere. Quickly before we move on, did you know that private browsing isn't that private? A shocking revelation, I'm sure. But that's not all. If you're on a public network that's not secure, people on the same network can snoop in and see what you're up to. And that's not ideal when you're using your credit card, passwords, or are up to any questionable activities. Now that hacker's got everything he needs. Wait, what's that? NordVPN encrypts your data at the source, making it more difficult to intercept your traffic. Just hit a country, and you'll be more secure in seconds. Now, instead of stealing your credit card details, that hacker's at work. Also, access to Netflix's lineups in different countries, and no more spying from your internet service provider. No speed limit, no log policy, and if you don't like it, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. And you can grab NordVPN at a 70% discount through the link in the description. That's $3.49 a month, plus a month free. Now, Flat Earth pulls in a few kinds of people. First, there are the people who believe that the few lines in the Bible alluding to a flat Earth should be taken literally, and then there are the conspiracy theorists who get roped in from the jungle of other conspiracy theories online. And although they're all under the same flag, they don't all agree with each other. For instance, not everyone believes in the dome. Some believe that the planet just keeps going on forever. Some also believe that the Earth is motionless, while others believe it's constantly moving upwards. So as well as the arguments with globetards, there's also quite a lot of bickering with each other. The society has also had some critics, most notably astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, alongside pretty much every other scientist on the planet. But it didn't matter. The Flat Earthers had B.O.B., a rapper that no one had heard about in around 10 years. Inevitably, an online dispute between deGrasse Tyson and B.O.B. sprung up in early 2016. It started out with a few tweets. deGrasse Tyson sees what B.O.B. is posting on Twitter and immediately steps in the ring. The following back and forth on Twitter starts out relatively level-headed, but it doesn't stay that way for long. The very next day, B.O.B. drops a Flat Earth diss track on Neil deGrasse Tyson, instantly proving all of his points wrong. Neil swings back with a diss track of his own. B.O.B. had had enough. He was going to prove his point. In 2017, he sets up a $1 million GoFundMe to launch a satellite into the sky and settle it once and for all. However, it doesn't quite reach its goal. Not much has happened since. Okay, so potentially millions of people have been roped into the viewpoint that the Earth's flat. But what are their actual arguments? The Flat Earthers' discoveries are incredible. Their arguments proving too logical for scientists themselves. However, there are a few issues with a few of their points. At the base of the society, the Flat Earth model. This is what the entire movement revolves around. There are a few different versions, but they all share the same fundamental aspects. They're flat and surrounded by a wall of ice. Here are the problems with that. To get to this model, they've had to stretch countries out, literally to the point where they're actually no longer proportional. Also, when put into practice, countries on this map are much farther apart than they are in reality. For instance, here is a direct flight from Sydney, Australia to Santiago, Chile, approximately a 7,000-mile journey. QF27 is a 12-hour flight. However, if the world looks like this, you're looking at a distance of around 17,000 miles, and that's going to take a lot longer than 12 hours. In fact, the plane would have to travel at almost twice the speed of sound. Flat Earthers' response to this? The flights don't exist. The airlines are in on it, and the flights are simply unable to be booked, or always cancelled a few days before. The multiple videos of people getting on these flights on YouTube are yet to be addressed. Now let's take a look at who's actually in on it. Turns out, it's a lot of people. Anyone with a reasonable knowledge of circumnavigation, governments worldwide, scientists worldwide, NASA, and the United Nations. It's even in their logo. And all of NASA's footage? CGI. In fact, Flat Earthers reckon that NASA was actually created to hide the real shape of the Earth in the first place, and is spending billions of dollars a year all in an effort to cloak the fact that we're living under a dome. Okay, so how do they explain ships disappearing over the horizon bottom first? Heat. If the sun and the moon look like this, how come solar eclipses exist? It's a shadow object that orbits the sun. Okay. Their arguments are convincing, but some members of the Flat Earth Society still weren't content, so they thought they'd conduct some research of their own. It's 2017, and Flat Earther Mike Hughes looks up to the sky. He doesn't believe the lies, and wants to see the so-called curvature of the Earth with his very own eyes. So he plans to build a homemade rocket to do so, but first he needs $20,000. He crowdfunds $8,000 and gets to work on building the rocket. After months of assembly, November 2017 finally comes around. But at the very last minute, the Bureau of Land Management tell him he's on public land and not allowed to launch. A few months later, he's ready to launch again, and this time, he's no longer on public land. However, the rocket doesn't actually work. Quite lucky for Hughes, considering his team forgot to arm the main parachute of the rocket. But on the 26th of March, he's ready to launch for a third time. And it finally happens. He soars almost 2,000 feet into the sky, before coming back down to Earth. A successful launch, but not quite high enough to see the curvature of the planet. For that, he would have needed to reach a height of 35,000 feet. Flat Earth? Not proven. However, there's a bit more to the story than that. If Hughes had actually wanted to see the curvature of the Earth, all he had to do was fork out $200 for a ride on a commercial airline, which generally reaches at least 30,000 feet. That's a lot cheaper than building a $20,000 makeshift rocket. It also turns out that Hughes is actually a daredevil, and has been launching rockets for quite some time. He launched a rocket reaching 1,500 feet in 2014, and set up a fundraiser for a launch in 2016, asking for $150,000, but that amassed little more than $300. However, after suddenly declaring himself a flat earther in 2017, Hughes managed to crowdfund almost $10,000. So I don't think it's reaching to say that Mike Hughes actually just used Flat Earth as a means to fund his rocket career. Tragically, Mike Hughes passed away early this year, after an early deployment of a parachute during his latest rocket launch. Back again to 2018, and a group of Flat Earthers decide to test their theory. Okay, so these so-called scientists are telling us that the Earth is spinning 360 degrees a day, so that's got to be 15 degrees of rotation an hour. We'll see about that. One of them spends $20,000 on a ring laser gyroscope, a device that they can use to measure the rotation of the planet. They then leave it up for an hour. It measures 15 degrees. That measurement didn't count, of course, because the gyroscope was supposedly picking up heavenly energies from the sky. So they then put it in a zero Gauss chamber. They wait 1 hour. Still 15 degrees. Flat Earth? Still not proven. In the same year, another group of Flat Earthers get to work. Okay, so one guy used our movement to crowdfund his rocket hobby. Another guy wasted $20,000 on a piece of navigational equipment that proved us wrong. Time to go a bit cheaper. This experiment would require only 3 boards and a 3000 milliwatt laser. The basic idea was that they'd have 3 boards placed evenly along a 3.88 mile stretch through the Victoria Canal. They'd then shoot the laser from one end to the other, and then track where it passed on each board. And if it was at the same point across all 3, the Earth was flat. But if the laser passed a lower point on the middle post, the Earth was round. However, when they actually tested it out, the laser beam had expanded over the canal and shone onto the entire final board, making it impossible to tell what point it was hitting. Another failure. Alright boys, one final test. This was basically another attempt at the last test, but with a few key differences. This one involved only 2 boards, a camera, and a flashlight. They cut out holes 14 feet up the boards, then posted them along the same stretch of the canal. If the camera on the other end of the flashlight picked up any lights through the holes, the earth was flat. But if the camera picked up no light, the earth was round. The camera didn't pick up any light. So far, not much has worked out. However, the Flat Earth Society are currently setting up plans for a Flat Earth cruise, set to sail to the Great Ice Wall within the next 2 years, where the Flat Earthers will finally be able to gaze upon the Great Barrier keeping us all caged in, with their very own eyes. What they'll say when they realise it's not actually a wall, nobody can say. But for now, the Earth is undeniably flat to potentially millions of people.